Years ago, back when I was living in Pennsylvania, my pastor at the time came to me and asked me to take on a new role in our church. And to me, it was a scary idea because it was something completely new to me. And it was frankly overwhelmingly outside of my comfort zone. I felt inadequate to fill this role. Surely my pastor had the wrong person. But in the face of my many protests and excuses, my pastor was adamant that God had called me to this role. But I refused. He kept insisting and I kept resisting. And I remember very clearly the moment that I said, in frustration and with not a little bit of irritation, "Pastor Stewart, I can't do it." And I'll never forget his response. It changed how I've approached my faith from that point on. He said, "You're right, you can't." And internally, I breathed a sigh of relief that he had finally understood me. But he said, "You're right, you can't, but God can." And his point was clear. If God calls you to it, he will make a way. He will equip you in the thing that seems too crazy to even entertain. God had called me to it. And now my job was to take the leap, or as Pastor Lonnie said this past Sunday, to step up and step out in faith that God would provide a way for his will to be done. My only job was to yield to his will and to be obedient to his calling. It required not skill, but trust. God has called you to Mount Tabor because there's a purpose for you here, a purpose for you to serve. There's no question about that. There are only two questions that remain. What is your purpose? And are you willing to follow where he calls you? Pastor Lonnie spoke this past Sunday about what a disciple is in our series, and he emphasized that a disciple is adventurous. A disciple is willing to take that leap, to follow God, even into the places that don't seem to make sense. So if you're struggling with those questions of what am I called to do here at Mount Tabor, or how can I get started, let's have a conversation. Send me an email, give me a call, or comment on this video, and let's talk about what God may be calling you to, or about how we can connect you to things here at Mount Tabor to help you take that next step, so that you can step up and step out and be an adventurous disciple who's willing to follow wherever God may lead.